Welcome to People Doing Good for Others. Welcome to People Doing Good for Others, where we praise, honor, and celebrate those who are truly making considerable contributions in our communities. I'm Gary York, and I'm grateful to be your host today. I want to thank Wilkes Communications and RiverStreet Productions, 100.9 WIFM for this sponsorship. Our very special guest today is Margaret Martine. She's a painter, she's a historian, she's an art teacher, a mother and a wife, and a tremendous advocate in our communities, especially around the Whippoorwill Academy and Village. So thank you for being with us, and this is going to be an incredible experience, and thanks again for this opportunity to share with you today. So good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
You've been a real nice addition of a new friendship for me. And if you will, just tell us about Margaret. Tell us a little bit about you as a person.
I'm a Ferguson girl. I grew up here in Wilkes County. I went to Wilkes Central High School, went to Little Boomer Ferguson Elementary School, which is right down the road. I live in a community that was named after my great-grandfather, Captain Lindsay Ferguson, and my middle name's Ferguson, and I thought my mother had named me after the post office. I am an artist. I got my education for art education at Appalachian State University, and then I got my Master of Fine Arts at the Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia. I'm from a family that loves history and loves art and loves doing things for the community.
When you went to Savannah School of Art, tell us a little bit about concentrations of things. I hear so many good things about it. Tell us a little bit about that time there.
That was a tough time for me because I had just gone through a divorce. I was a single parent, and I knew nobody in Savannah at all, and I had a 5-year-old child to take care of. And it was a very growing time for me as an individual as well as an artist. I made lifelong friends. I learned so much about painting, about myself. The requirements were strict and the bar was raised high, and I loved every minute. My daughter and I lived on an island, and we just had the best time. I cried sometimes because I was overwhelmed with all the workload, and my little girl would say, "Mom, go ahead and cry, it'll make you feel better." And she was right. Sometimes it did help. But I am a painter, and I do love painting.
Thank you. And today we're going to talk about Whippoorwill Academy and Village, and it's a family tradition passed down to you. So tell our folks today your focus, if you will, and your passion for this wonderful endeavor.
Well, first of all, my mother, Edith Ferguson Carter, retired educator, started the village before she'd even retired. She knew of an old schoolhouse where her father and his brothers and sisters had gone to school that was about a quarter of a mile away on Peeler Hayes' farm, called Whippoorwill Academy. And my grandfather was getting older, and he wanted so much for that building to be saved, so my mom went to Peeler Hayes and asked him about it, and she asked if she could buy it from him. And being the kind, generous man that Peeler is, he said, "No, but I'll give it to you." So then Mom went through the process of having it moved, and my grandfather celebrated, 97th birthday, 98th birthday, 100th birthday at Whippoorwill. He was so thrilled that school was saved. Wow. And then from that point on, my mother started adding other buildings. My father wasn't gung-ho with what she was doing because that meant he was giving up his sheep pasture. But eventually he got on board because my dad was a social person, big time, and he loved all the visitors that came to the village. So he ended up embracing what my mother had done and got involved with helping her with finding help to move the buildings and reconstruct them.
So now, if the buildings are dismantled,
Yes,
and then moved to the Whippoorwill and
Yes.
reconstructed.
that's right.
Okay.
We have 12 buildings so far. The only one that we have that is not log per se, well, we got two actually. It's the blacksmith shop and the weaving building. Those are not out of logs. But Matt's store was moved from Ferguson, and it was a local place of great interest during the day. So those are the two that are not. The oldest building we have is the Daniel Boone Hunting Lodge, which was moved from Howard's Knob area in Boone down to Ferguson. My cousin Cam Finley bought that in memory of my dad and had it moved. And it's made totally of chestnut wood. And it is where we show the video. My mother did like 12 videos about North Carolina history and legends, and we showed the Daniel Boone story in there. Daniel Boone had a home in Ferguson for over 20 years. But it wasn't Ferguson then. It was just known as the Happy Valley.
What did you bring with you here? Let's do that right now.
This is a whippoorwill, and whippoorwill is named for, the name that came about because Jim Hartley from ages ago said, I don't like where this school's being built. He said, it's so far back in the woods, even the whippoorwills can't find it. So that was the name that stuck. But this is our sponsorship sign. And it was made by, we have a whole group of these birds made by a former art student of mine named Tim Larson, who is a graphic artist in Hickory. And he is a volunteer also at the village, and that's something I love about what we're doing. So many of my former students come back to help. But what we do is, let's say that someone donates money to help us continue, because we are a nonprofit. We'll write their name on here, and it will be posted at the event that they have wanted to sponsor. And we also use it in some publications and on our Facebook site as well. So I'm really tickled to death
So that's a
with this.
new feature for us then.
Oh, yes.
This piece here.
Yes, and the beauty of it is we have like all different sizes, you know. Sometimes like a local person may say, Margaret, I'd like to give $20 to go toward the poetry competition.
Yeah.
Their name goes on a whippoorwill.
All right.
As much as somebody who donates much more. So this is something that we're excited about having. And I really appreciate my former student for going to the trouble of making those for us.
So, in fundraising, saying thank you is such an important part of it. So, we'll highlight folks who care a lot and give to us to help us with our passion.
Absolutely, it's an expensive endeavor. Our volunteers are not paid. We have a wonderful board of directors that's involved in helping us, and most of them live in other towns outside of our area. Who come in to help. So I really appreciate them. And a lot of people donate things. Like this past week, Matt Minton's great-grandson sent me a letter and said, Margaret, we have some objects that belonged in Matt Minton's store, and we'd like to donate them to Matt's store. So it's kind of cool that those things are coming home. And those are so appreciated.
Tell us how to get there. How far is it and some of those things?
When you get on Scenic Highway 268, driving past Kerscott Reservoir, you will eventually see, thank you Eddie Barnes, these beautiful purple signs that say Whippoorwill Village. And
so that was Eddie helped you with that?
He sure did, and we appreciated that because
too.
It's led a lot of people to the village.
So it's about 12 miles from the college?
I'd say about 12 miles. I always look at it in minutes, like how long does it take me to drive? So I'd say 15 to 20 minutes driving from Wilkesboro areas to Whippoorwill.
Talk about the beautiful vistas and scenes from being on that knoll there and looking, what is that, west? Tell us about that.
Yes. Well, to me, one of the beautiful things about this whole village and everything, about the whole thing of Ferguson, my ancestors came from Scotland in the 1700s, and they settled in that area. And and when my family went back to Scotland 4 years ago, a whole group of us, it was so much fun. It was all geared around the Fergusons. But we found that they settled in a place that looked like home back in Scotland. So if you come to Ferguson, you're getting a sense of Scotland because that's what it looks like there as well from where we believe that they were from. And the weddings that we hold there, we have a chapel at the village. We've had a wedding recently, have another one coming up. But It is so beautiful, and the photographs that are made there for these brides and grooms are spectacular.
Yeah. So I want to go back to Miss Carter, and I saw a video on, I guess, YouTube or anyway. It's just such an endearing person, and you just couldn't get. Tell us more type person. Tell us about her a little bit more.
Not a week goes by that I don't hear from somebody that said, "I loved your mother," and so I love hearing that because my mother was an amazing teacher. She had a heart of gold, and she was very, very active with the community, whether it was Grange, whether it was church, whether it was Wilkes Telecommunications. She was involved with so many different organizations. I don't know how she did it. I don't know where she got that kind of energy, but she was running the village even into her 80s. She had a golf cart, thank God for golf carts, that she was able to get around. But she started this with the intention of promoting the history of the area and also celebrating the arts of the area. We have the Smokehouse Gallery that we have changing exhibits with painters, potters, that kind of thing. But also in our Matt's store, we sell local artwork, local pottery, also bamboo pickles.
Tell me about that.
I brought a jar of that, and I left it in my purse. My grandmother Ferguson created
bamboo
pickles. She created a recipe back in the 1950s and made it to the Betty Feezer show. Her recipe got on Betty Feezer, and if you're not from North Carolina and you don't know about Betty Feezer was like the first Martha Stewart.
Really?
And she was, our grandmothers and our mothers quit everything that they were doing during the day when the Betty Feezer show came on. Betty Feezer showed sewing tips and cooking recipes and everything, but Grandma's bamboo pickle recipe made it to the Betty Feezer show. And I think she was as proud of that as she was of having grandchildren. But my cousin Renee and I make the bamboo every year from the bamboo that grows on the farm, and that's one of our big sellers. And we sell it at Matt's store, and also it's sold at the Wilkes History Museum.
Really?
So they're really good.
How about that? This endeavor requires a lot of people. None of them are paid. And we talk about the essence of a volunteer and how one could get involved with us.
We are meeting on August the 18th on Saturday at 11 o'clock, and I'm asking everybody to bring a bag lunch. But if you would like to be a volunteer, please come. And what we'll do is we'll tell you what the different jobs are. And when someone comes, we have two big events every year, and that's the Tom Dooley event. Tom Dooley was from Ferguson, and that's more of an 1800s feel. And then we do a Daniel Boone event in September, and that's more of a 1700s time period. More and more people are dressing in costume, which we love. So maybe it'll get to be like a Renaissance festival, with everybody wanting to get into that time period, because it's just a lot of fun. But I don't have my volunteers work all day long. They get breaks so that they can enjoy the festival as well. We'll have Dink Tharp, our blacksmith, wonderful guy, comes and demonstrates blacksmithing. My 9-year-old grandson got to do some blacksmithing with him, and he thought it was the ultimate thing. We have Kenny Klontz with weaving. We have so many people involved. Mary Boland does cooking from the fireplace. Gosh, there's so many people that help us with this. We have different historians that come, former educators that are now retired also come in to help, and people who just like to be involved with things like that come to help. And it takes a lot. It takes about 80 people to volunteer for one event. So it's a lot of people, and that to me is the headache, is trying to line up all the help that I need for the different slots.
Never enough volunteer.
There are never enough volunteers. And if one person calls and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I've got vertigo," which now I totally understand. If you have vertigo, you can't do anything. I can't come. Then that's like, oh no, what am I going to do? Because I can't leave the buildings unattended.
Right.
You know, I'd have to lock them up during the event until the next person's time slot opened and they could take place there. But we do everything from, sometimes we have puppet shows, storytelling, and something we did this year that was really cool too. I love this, because once you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. April is National Poetry Month. And we did this year James Larkin Pearson attended Whippoorwill Academy and Village, and he was North Carolina's second poet laureate. You with me here?
I get
He went
you.
to this little tiny school. Anyway, he was a wonderful poet. So we had a competition for middle and high school students from Wilkes and Caldwell counties. And I had some wonderful teachers that helped from both counties. My cousin Kendall Privet, who's a teacher here in Wilkes County, collected the poems from Wilkes County students. And then we sent them to a man who's on the board for the North Carolina Poetry Association, and he was our judge. And I ordered statues from Greece of Homer, you know, so that they could have a.
Oh, my goodness.
And we gave them cash. And that was whenever I was really begging for sponsors. Please help us, because I want these kids to get something for their talent, because not everybody's an athlete. You know, some people shine in
yeah,
other
sure.
areas, and they don't get enough attention, in my opinion. So anyway, I had people that donated for that, and the kids came and they read their poems, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful day. So we want to do that again next year with the second annual James Larkin Pearson Poetry Competition.
Margaret Martine, you're carrying this rich tradition from your mother to the next generation and hopefully pass it on to others who will have the same enthusiasm and love for it that you do. So tell us about the Outlander series.
Oh my goodness. Well, I got a call 2 months ago from a lovely lady named Beth Pittman from the eastern part of the state. And Beth called and she said, she said, I'm part of an Outlander group. And I went, what's an Outlander group? And she said, have you read Diana Gabaldon's books, the Outlander series? I said, I read 2 of them. And I said, the second one was tough to get through. I said, it was some horrific things happening in that book. I stopped at book 2. She goes, keep on reading, keep on reading. She said, yes, that was tough. She said, but keep on reading, you'll love it. Well, I'm on the 8th book right now. But she called and she said there are hundreds of thousands of fans, of the Outlander fans all over the world. And she said, in book number 4, Drums of Autumn, it takes place in your area of North Carolina.
Oh my goodness.
And then as I read, I found like book 4, book 5, book 6 also take place in this area.
Wow.
So anyway, Wilkes County needs to jump on board on this, because this is not the only Outlander fan group that's coming. But what they want to go with this couple, Jamie and Claire Fraser from Scotland, no doubt. But anyway, we're going to have on the 21st at Whippoorwill, the 22nd it continues at Leatherwood. You have to buy tickets in advance. I'm not in charge of that. Beth is. They can go on www.northcarolinaoutlander.com to get information. But so far, there are people coming from California, Colorado, Texas, Pennsylvania, 17 different states of people coming
They're going
to
to
our
be at
area.
Whippoorwill.
At Whippoorwill and Leatherwood for that weekend. And it's going to be all 1700s. Food's going to be served out of a black pot for lunch at Whippoorwill. We're going to go, of course, I told my husband, I said, we got to buy tickets for Saturday, because if we're going this far, we've got to go all the way with this Outlander event.
Yeah, sure.
But we've got live music, we've got all kinds of things happening with that too. So I would recommend, if people haven't either seen the series of the Outlander, you should at least get the books and start reading.
Yeah.
They're very addictive, very interesting. So they love the fact that this is a Scottish story and this is a Scottish family farm, since the farm was settled by my ancestors from Scotland in the 1700s. So it's kind of cool that that's one of the elements that they love about having it at Whippoorwill.
Margaret Martine, what is a docent?
A docent is a dear, dear person who gives of their time to come and be a volunteer specifically at Whippoorwill Academy and Village. So what we do with a docent, we give them information about what they're going to be talking about.
So you train the folks that volunteer
Yes.
to be competent in the area that they'll be helping.
That's right. We give them information about the cabin that they're in, and they may serve for 2 hours, and then they get off a couple of hours to go do something else. But when we have school groups, now that's different. We have private tours during the week for groups of 15 or more, and we're already lining up schools. We've got a school coming from Caldwell County. There are 80 of them coming. So when we have that many students coming, I need extra help, because we ring the bell. when it's time for
Right.
the different groups to change the direction of the buildings they're going to, because you can't get 80 kids into one of those buildings. So, so it's a fun day. And something else that we do that I think is fun, last year I painted over 100 rocks with the different animals that Daniel Boone would have hunted. And my grandson and I hid them all over the village. So my husband sets up a bartering table, and he's dressed in his 1700s clothing. And the children go out to hunt for one rock. They can only bring one rock back in. And so he looks at that animal, he says, "Oh, you brought in a beaver. Oh, the beaver pelt is worth a lot right now. I'll trade you 2 pencils and a piece of candy or this string." And sometimes the kid will go for the string. We haven't figured that out yet. But anyway, we're teaching him about bartering, that
Right.
there was no money. You had to do trades. And so the kids absolutely love that, of hunting for the animal, bringing it to my husband to do that. But we do a lot of things geared toward, all people have to do is say either we're bringing a senior group or we're bringing kids, 3rd graders or 4th graders. We will tailor it to whoever comes, the program, to whoever comes to the village, knowing what age group they are and that kind of thing.
Margaret, let's go back to the buildings and just quickly kind of go around the knoll there, if you will,
Okay.
and just say we have this, and so folks will, this heritage, this history, this preservation is just incredible, I think. So just tell us
Well,
about the stops.
The first building would be Whippoorwill Academy and Village, which is the one-room schoolhouse. And you would think that what kind of education could you get from a one-room schoolhouse? Well, the first teacher was a former Confederate veteran, and he taught Latin and Hebrew. So the early students in the 1800s, got a great education from this man, and it went on from there to other really fine teachers. And out of that school, an elderly man in our community that I love and adore, named Zeltes Walsh, 94 now, and he's our area historian, told me, he said, "Margaret, that school was a school of higher learning. People who went to that school went with intentions of going beyond that one school for their education." So when I looked at James Larkin Pearson became poet laureate. John Ferguson, my great uncle, became an engineer on the Panama Canal. My grandfather went to West Point with General Patton and also got 2 degrees from Carolina. My great aunt Blanche became a nurse at the Panama Canal. Clyde Ferguson, my great uncle, became an inventor and oil tycoon in Dallas, Texas, and so many others.
Started at Whippoorwill.
Started at Whippoorwill. So that one-room schoolhouse
Oh my goodness.
was a school of higher learning, and they only went 3 months out of the year. So that tells you how aggressive, I guess, the curriculum was for them at that time. So we have the schoolhouse. And upstairs in the schoolhouse, we show videos. Either there were some that my mother's made, the Legend of the Brown Mountain Lights, the Legend of the Bull and Rock, about the pirates of North Carolina, the Lost Colony. So we have those videos that we show upstairs. Or I'm doing a puppet show. Then we have the Smokehouse Gallery, which is 1700s, the original smokehouse that went to the Ferguson home place, which is right there. And that was where my ancestors hung their hams and meats to cure, and that's now an art gallery, and we're having an Outlander show there right now that'll be up through September. Then we'll move on to the Visitor Center. The Visitor Center has information from different families in the area. It has a little bit of the history of the Ferguson community, so that's happening there, and also information for weddings for people who want to get married. The chapel is the Chapel of Peace, was built in memory of my grandmother Edith Kyles Ferguson, who was a peacemaker and made us kiss each other when we got in fights as grandkids. But we have weddings there, and also we teach people about the early church. And if you, for example, we teach the kids about this. They don't have this in churches today, but if they did, my dad would be in such trouble, because a deacon would walk around, and if you went to sleep as a man, he would come up and whack you in the head. So my dad would have to lump his head around. And then if you were a woman, you got tickled under the nose with a feather if you were going to sleep.
Nodding stick.
It's a nodding stick. So we teach the kids about the differences, how men sat on one side, women sat on the other. We have a pump organ. I play that. And the kids also learn that sometimes the churches at that time were also used for courtrooms. Like, did you steal John Smith's chicken? Neighbors saw that you did. So we do things like that with them. Then we have the Daniel Boone Hunting Lodge, which was actually a lodge up in the mountains that Daniel Boone slept in. So in that building, we show a video made with my mom's artwork and her ingenuity of getting it pulled together about Daniel Boone. From there is the Tom Dooley Museum, which is lined, the walls are lined with my mother's paintings about the story of Tom Dooley, a lock of Laura Foster's hair, Dr. Carter's bag, James Milton's shoe forms that he made shoes from. I mean, that is another whole thing there.
So we have history and preservation.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
So, okay.
We have a jail that is in honor of Hamp Kendall, who was a man from Ferguson wrongly accused of murder. And my husband gives out warrants, you know, for not turning in your homework or, you know, dancing with the mop or, you know, something crazy. And then we have the blacksmith shop, the weaving shop, Matt's store, and we have things, T-shirts and things made locally by people for selling there. We want it to benefit the community.
Wow.
And then we have outhouses. My mother always insisted that children had to use the outhouse before they could use the flush toilets.
Right.
Because she wanted them to get the full idea
Right.
of life long ago. And
Yeah.
the outhouse was certainly one of those important factors.
You mentioned Cam Finley.
I did.
Let's revisit there. He's just one of my most favorite people in the whole world.
He's one of my most favorite people too. He is on our board. He is my first cousin. His mother and my mother were beloved sisters. His mother, thank goodness we still have her with us.
Yes.
But she and my mom were real close, and Cam and I are close. And Cam has just been so involved. I don't know if you noticed when you visited there, but there was a statue outside of the Daniel Boone cabin.
I did see that.
Well, Cam commissioned a cousin from Maryland who's a chainsaw artist to make that and had it constructed there with the gun. So, I mean, he's just involved in so many ways in helping us. He got the Boy Scouts involved in doing a primitive campground down near the river. He's gotten a nature trail started. We've got a kiosk for that. So Cam's been very important with this. He's one of those cousins who's committed to family history and the importance of family and the importance of the legacy of the original farm as I am.
What's a land trust?
A land trust is something that my mother did, my sister has done, and that I have done. We have put the land in a land trust, which means that it cannot be developed by our children in the future. It will be protected. To me, it's just, my mother was more proud of that on her deathbed probably than anything else. She said to me, she said, I feel so good I've saved the farm. And I said, you sure have, Mom. So she felt like, and I feel the same way about our property as well, that we're giving somebody a great view, you know, who builds beyond us. But I look at it in terms of there's more land for the animals, for the birds. You know, where are they going to go? And then while my mother was living, she also had our farm put on the North Carolina birding trail.
Yeah.
And on all of the cabins, there are birds painted that she has on North Carolina birds. So we can have a contest with kids. You know, you get 5 minutes, see how many birds you can find and which building they're on, you know, to have them run around for that. We had our first birding trail walk this past spring, which was wonderful. So we're just really proud that we're able to save the property and that other people can enjoy it as well.
Margaret Martine with Whippoorwill. What are the two biggest challenges that we have where we want to appeal to the folks today to help us?
We need sponsors. We desperately need sponsors because money just doesn't fall out of the sky for us to run this. And my mother used to run it with no charge at all, just giving a donation. And sometimes people wouldn't leave her anything. They'd have a wedding and they wouldn't leave her anything. And, you know, and it costs a lot of money to maintain the buildings. And we do write grants. Thank goodness for Lowe's Hometown Grant. They've helped us a great deal with putting new roofs on a lot of those shingled cabins. And we've got more to go. We need to dig a new well. I mean, there's things like that. One of our big goals that we would really like to go for, which was my mom's last request, she said, if there's any way you can ever get a barn there, please get a barn there. And if we had the barn there, that would mean that we could have workshops, cheese making classes, authors coming to speak with enough space to you know, to
Sure.
have people come in. Because right now our buildings can hold 25 maybe people at a time, and that's not very many. But we need sponsors, and we also need volunteers.
Okay.
And even if you like the guy that gave me $20 in a grocery store for the children's poetry competition, every penny is appreciated. You know, we don't go, oh, is that all you're giving? No, it's like thank you, you know, for doing that for us. And
Margaret, it's been an honor to have you today.
Well,
You're
thank
such
you.
a delightful, uplifting spirit. I thank you for being part of people doing good for others. And I want to thank Wilkes Communications and RiverStreet Productions and for your presence here today. And close with just a word about the values that we hold so dear that you are preserving at Whippoorwill.
I think when we look into the past, we see the struggle that it took to make our country our country. And I think that, especially with the Daniel Boone story, that I try to bring that so clearly. This area of North Carolina was a dangerous area to come into. There were attacks from the Native Americans. They were mad that we were here, and I don't blame them. But it took a lot of strong-willed, courageous people to build this country, and I don't think we should forget them. And I think we should celebrate every day the rights and the privileges that we have because of people who've gone before us.
So you're honoring your family, especially Edith Carter, who will be a legend in my life forever. So thank you for being here. And
Thank you.
we want people to come to Whippoorwill and get on board.
Absolutely.
Be a part of something great.
We are open every Saturday from 1 to 5, every third Saturday of the month from April through October, and then we're closed. And people think, well, you don't do anything in the winter. Oh, yes, we do. We're getting ready for the next year.
Right.
So, but thank you so much for having me, and I look forward
What a
to
blessing.
seeing you.
Come again.
Yeah, come to the village and hang out
Yeah,
with us.
thank you.